Exploring the digital archives from Cinecraft Productions, John and Jim will share with us who the early TV pitchmen were and the products they advertised. John is the son of Frank Seidel, an American novelist, historian, educator, and broadcaster. His father wrote over 1,500 movie, radio, and television scripts and 3 historical novels. And John has been a key partner in the Hagley Library Project to preserve the films of Cinecraft Productions. And Jim is a movie historian working on the Hagley Library effort to preserve the films and records of Cinecraft Productions, a film studio founded by his mother and father in 1939. And with that, I always ask you, please mute your cell phone ringers and help me in welcoming John and Jim.
So like we've done before, we're going to show you a lot of films, and we're going to show you clips of some and full versions of others, and we're going to go really quickly. And let me sit down here to a second, get things rolling. I want to talk about this picture, though, for a second. My brother's standing in line at Walmart, and there's a cookbook. They have a display of books and stuff at the checkout counter. And one of the cookbooks was 100 Years of Vitamix.
Oh. 1, 2.
Okay, testing, Mike. Testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Sounds like it's coming in now. Is it? Testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No.
No? Yes? Testing, testing, testing.
1, 2. Mine's working.
How about now? You know, Mike, I could use a hand mic too if you want to do that. Good call, you guys. Oh, we're not shy. No, we're not shy. Okay, but you, this is on, right? And you can turn it on and off? Yay. Okay. Oh, gee, I can walk around. So my brother's standing in line at Walmart, and he comes across this cookbook, Vitamix, 100 Years Recipes with the Vitamix blender. And he opens it up, and it's talking about the history of Vitamix. Does anybody have a Vitamix blender? Yeah, a couple of people, okay. And oh no. And he opens to this picture, and that's my father in the director's chair, and that's my aunt standing in the back. She had just starting work. This is 1949. She had just started work at the studio as a script girl, basically. The guy who looks like he's mad as hell is the ad agency guy, and they're listening to Papa Bernard tell them how to make a movie. Now, Papa Bernard was a carnival huckster. You're going to hear all about him in a minute, but he made millions of dollars, and that company's is now over 100 years old. And I think that's on Monday when Neil was here. He was saying, you know, the studio made a lot of people millionaires. You know, the people had to get their message out. Somebody had to tell a story, and sponsored films, studios, that's what they did. So how many people went last night for the keynote speaker? Yeah, great. So I thought that was wonderful, and I thought he talked about the importance of television. We're back in a much earlier era than he was. But he also talked about 3 cameras, and we talked about that this week. That 3 camera stuff started back in the sponsored film people doing it before Hollywood was doing it, because it was a cheap way to make movies. When you only had the actor for one day, you know, you had to get as much footage as you could, and they do it with 3 cameras. So, okay, I want to just review the week for real quickly. Monday we talked about what sponsored films are, commercial films, industrial musicals, all going by those kind of names. Big industry employed many, many people. Every city of any size had a sponsored film studio. Cleveland had at least 12 of them over time. Pittsburgh had a number of them. Big markets were Detroit, Chicago, and Kansas City for sponsored films. The films that they made sometimes won Oscars as shorts, for example. They generally were not long features. Sometimes they showed in theaters as a second feature. They were shown in schools. They were shown at the country club. They were shown at the Grange. You know, they were shown in training films. Really started as early as Hollywood films by that name, or theatrical films. Way, way back when Thomas Edison started making films, he was kind of making sponsored films in the beginning. And so it's a long, long history. Now, if you want to tell your friends something to go watch, what's a sponsored film? I encourage you to watch Bathtubs Over Broadway. Go to YouTube, watch it. I think you have to pay $5 to watch it. There's a trailer there that's quite good. That's the David Letterman's screenwriter collecting records from these crazy records from sales meetings, and it's a recording of the songs that they made for a movie promoting bathtubs or everything. So it's great. This particular shot, the picture is a Westinghouse industrial musical called Fan Family Album, and it's on YouTube, and my father made it, and it's terrible. No, it's a wonderful film, and you laugh a lot, and I can just imagine the problems they had putting sand on the stage of the studio. Probably now 100, or what, I don't know how many years later, they're still finding sand that was left over from that movie. So, Bathtubs Over Broadway. And we also talk what happened in 1948. That's when TV really started to just begin. There were enough content and enough people buying televisions. It was black and white, and it was a really small screen, but all the sponsored film industry turned over to start making TV stuff. And one of the problems, by the way, when TV came along is there wasn't time, there wasn't, and this, you didn't put your name at the end of the sponsored film. So you don't know what studio made it, you don't know what director made it. You know, it's very difficult, even what year it was made. So as you find this stuff now, it's much more difficult to research the television era of sponsored films. Tuesday, we talked about this effort to preserve the materials. There's a lot of, the Smithsonian has an amazing collection. It's called the Prelinger collection, and it has thousands and thousands of industrial films. Wonderful place to surf the net if you want to. You go to Internet Movie Database, and you just, or go to Internet Movie Archives, or Prelinger, Prelinger, and you can find his collection. You can look for automobile ads, beer ads, you know, anything you want. Anyway, basement of the studio, I happened to come back to Cleveland for a funeral, and I ran into the current owner of the studio, and he asked us to come and make a little documentary. And I said, are the films still in the basement? And he said, yeah, come on down. I had used to work there and paint in the summer times and that kind of stuff. And that on the right-hand side are all the lettering was my father's lettering around the edge of those cans. I said, holy smokes, we've got to do something. And are you going to do anything? And he said, well, I'm going to do that when I retire. I'm going to write stories about the films. And I said, well, let me help you. So we started this project about 5 years ago to preserve. Some of the films, by the way, on the left were in pretty bad shape. You can see a flood has come through that room, and how much of that is salvageable. But Hagley Museum came with multiple trips of moving vans and hauled the stuff, not just Cinecraft films, but everybody's films. Anybody who, Republic Steel, Westinghouse, Bell Telephones, Ohio, all the companies that were big in our area, their films were down in the basement of Cinecraft, and they're now at Hagley. Wednesday, we talked about two long-running series, The Ohio Story. John Seidel's father wrote the scripts and was the brains behind selling the idea, getting it made, and we talked about the importance of the screenwriter. And then on Thursday, we showed a couple of movies, and we asked you to look at the movies from the point of view of somebody making it and how hard it was, with teleprompters and with 3 cameras. We showed 2 wonderful movies, and today we're going to show a movie, but we're going to start out talking about some of my favorite early commercials, and we're going to talk about particularly Papa Bernard and the very first infomercial. And the way we're going to start is we're going to show about 7 minutes from a documentary that hasn't come out yet, and this was filmed 20 years ago. My uncle was in his 70s. The executive producer that's talking was 85, I think, and the man who's on the screen right now is Bob Haviland's grandson. Said, I want to record my father talking about these movies. And the grandson had done some research, and he had a list of things. And one of the things he said, tell me about the first infomercial. And Bob and Paul hadn't prepared ahead of time, but they started reminiscing about making this crazy thing called...
The production that a lot of people remember, there's something called Vitamix, and I know there's a great story behind the making of Vitamix.
Papa Bernard.
Now,
Barnard, yeah. Pappy Barnard.
you can go to the Vitamix website, and they talk about this as the first infomercial in history.
I would think that's true.
Papa saw television, and he said, "That's a great way to sell my product." And he came down here. He talked to you guys.
Yeah, he stopped in here one day and told Ray what he wanted to do, and Ray thought he was a little bit out of it, but
He had a good reason for that. Why was
well,
that?
the type of guy and the product and all, and what the way he was talking, it just didn't seem to gee up very good. But then they agreed, all right, and so come around to the business of money, and Ray gave him a price to what it would cost, and the guy wheels off the money.
In cash.
In cash.
Out of his pocket.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been what, $10,000, $20,000? I mean, minimum. To do
I
a
don't
commercial.
remember the number, but yeah, it would be in that area. It'd be that kind of thing. And then when it come time to do it, of course, we thought we knew how to make movies, but he thought he knew how to make them too. It was his money.
The perfect client then.
Yeah.
He doesn't
But
hardly need you.
we had a set. I don't remember if it was one that we had or we set it up for him. But in any case, we had this big set, and we set up 3 cameras, and wanted the script and stuff, and he says, "There's no script. I'll just do it." And, all of these procedures just isn't quite set right with us, but then it was his money. And so we finally got around to shooting the job, and we set up the 3 cameras and had the cameramen there, and everything's going fine. And well, once he says, "Oh, I can't find my stuff. Just a minute." And he walks off the stage, and Jesus, Ray was directing it, and he kind of, our actor walked off the stage. What do you do? And he comes walking back, and he just picked up where he was and kept on going. And when we got done, went through the segment and got done, Ray says, I don't know how to get around where you walk out of the stage. He says, "Well, that's all right. That's okay. Leave it alone. And don't mess around with it." And he dropped things on the floor, pick them up, and so on. But anyhow, he did the whole piece, and yeah, that was a classic. He sold one heck of a lot of copies of that thing.
Well, Pappy Barnard had been a live pitchman. He went to circuses or to county fairs and food shows, all that kind of stuff, pitching live. And he sold these blenders, like a Waring blender, except it was a cheaper version of it, made by Manning Bowman. And he was very successful, and he went on TV one night before he came here. He went on WEWS. See, when WEWS went on the air, they had practically nothing to run. And they'd take anything, and he came with this thing, and they took him. And they then said he didn't pay for any airtime, but if anybody wanted to buy a Vitamix, they send the money to the studio. And then the studio would take off a piece and hand it to him, and he would deliver it. And so he made this film with Ray and start sending the film out, as bad as it was. It really, Paul, sounds like it's a terrible film.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
It's very entertaining. It's entertaining because the guy is a clown.
Right.
He's a very lovable man.
He had a shtick. It was all practice.
He lived in a house trailer. He lived in a house trailer at the corner of 150th and Lorraine Avenue. And all the time he's doing this, in fact, when he was a millionaire, he was still there in that house trailer. But anyhow, he was selling he's sending these prints out that he got from Ray, and each station did the same thing. You send the money to the station. This way, Pappy Barnard didn't have to handle the bookkeeping, because all he did was, from his little house trailer, And the barn out in back, he got the order with the money, and all he had to do was get Manning Bowman to drop ship the drink thing. Well, anyhow, this went very well, and later on, he did some TV commercials, and the same thing.
He came back here.
Yeah, and one day, one of our advertising agency fellows, name was Miles McCurney, he handled all the placing of the advertising, one thing and another. And one day, Miles came and said that Pappy Barnard is in such terrible trouble because the first year he'd taken in something like $2 million, all under his name. And a private individual with $2 million has to spend about 98% of it on income tax. He didn't know this.
Oh, no.
And Paul says the money was probably all in the trailer. But the Miles McCurney guided him, and they got the IRS to be lenient and let him backdate a corporation and clean all that up. And about a year later, we're sitting up in the front door here, Paul and all of us talking one day, and Pappy walked in, and he says, I'm in big trouble. I have to pull all my stuff in off the air, and I've got to cut all the prints. And I said, what happened? Well, the United States Food and Drug people discovered that in the film he said that one of the things you put in this drink that he mixed up is an egg. You break the egg in, then you throw the shell in too, and it grinds up and you drink it, and it's good for you because...
Need a little roughage.
Yeah, no, the eggshell, no, it really blended it fine, but the point he said was that doctors say that eggshell is pure calcium, and it's good for expectant mothers.
Oh.
So the United States government said to him, what doctor said that? And he didn't know any doctor about that.
That was part of the show.
He was going to have to cut all these prints, and then, of course, the time was off, you know. And he was beside himself. And right at that time, Ray sent me out to Hollywood to hire some talent for some show. Basil Rathman. No, it wasn't Basil Rathman.
Milestones of motoring.
No, it was Otto Kruger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that crowd.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was out to Hollywood to cast these people for a show here. And at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, they brag on having the largest, most complete drugstore in the world. And I was in there, and I had breakfast in there at this drugstore. I stayed there during this period. And I saw this sign about the most complete drugstore in the world, and I asked the guy, I said, well, the druggist, I said, this says you've got all this, have you got any powdered eggshells for pregnant women? You know, thinking, you know, give them something really to, he says, sure, we got it.
The production that...
Okay, so that's the story from the directors. But he did make, Papa Bernard made a number of commercials. We're going to show maybe the first 8 minutes of the first one. And it's kind of good in the beginning, but stay with it because it gets much better.
Ladies and gentlemen, in presenting Home Miracles for 1950, I'm going to give you a demonstration of one of the most wonderful machines that was ever invented, the Vitamix machine, and I'm going to talk to you on the most vital subject that concerns you and your family, and that is health. With health, we have wealth. We're the richest person on earth. Without health, you're a miserable failure. You'll lose your wealth, you'll lose your job, you'll lose your income, and you'll lose your life. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know the first thing that you're going to say is, what is doing that wonderful work? What is performing that miraculous work? I'm going to call your attention to the machine here, the mechanical part of it, the Vitamix. Remember the name, Vitamix. We have a motor that travels at the rate of 8,000 revolutions a minute on low, 14,000 revolutions a minute on high. You get a 1-year guarantee on this motor. If anything goes wrong with it in 1 whole year, the company will repair or replace it free of charge. Now, I'm going to call your attention to the business end of the machine, and that is this stainless steel bowl, made out of the finest material in the world for the preparation of food, the same material that's used by the United States government on all the battleships and in the hospitals for the preparation of food, stainless steel. On the inside of a container are 4 little blades that are made of stainless steel. They travel at the rate of 14,000 revolutions a minute. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to first, before I put in this carrot, there's a notch here and a notch over here. You set the two so they match. Before I put in this carrot, I'm going to show you some of the incidental things that you can do with this machine. One of the first things that I'm going to show you is how you can make your breadcrumbs. You want to make stuffings. You want to make breadcrumbs for breading and dressings and so forth. So you take even your soft bread or your dry bread or your toast, your buns, and you put them in. And you can turn on the machine. I'm going to use the glass bowl here so that you people can see what is going on. Remember, your machine will have the stainless steel bowl, and you look over the top and see what is going on. But we're going to use this glass bowl, and you will see every operation. Now, I turn on the machine to low and then to high. And there's your breadcrumbs, already made by electricity. Now I'm going to show you how you can grind your wheat. Many of you would like to make your own whole wheat, and for cereal possibly, or for muffins, or for bread, and do your own baking at home. It's hard to buy whole wheat on the market, so you can get your whole wheat grain, and put it in this machine. Turn on the machine to low and then to high, and you'll grind your wheat into a cereal in about 1 minute's time. It takes 2 minutes to make whole wheat flour. If you want cornmeal, you can put the whole grain of corn in there. And you'll have your cornmeal in 1 minute's time, and you'll have the corn flour, in 2 minutes' time. You people who are on a strict diet, maybe you can't tolerate starch, you can put in the soybean and make your soybean flour, barley flour, rice flour, for those on a strict diet. Now we have our cereal here. You put this in a double boiler, and it will cook in about 20 minutes. And you get all the bran, the middling, the germ, and the laxative of the whole wheat. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I put in this carrot, I'm going to put in just a little liquid. Our recipe book of 500 recipes tells you what liquid to use and how much to use in every one of the recipes. We tell you how to make pie fillers, omelets, cake batters, how to whip your cream, churn your butter, how to make your soups, your waffle batters, your potato pancake batters. You know, I saw a fellow the other day. He said he had a machine, that he had been married for 30 years, and he had never had a potato pancake in 30 years. Now think of that. 30 long, cold winters and no potato pancake. Say, we give you a recipe here that tells you how to make the finest potato pancake that was ever made by any woman. That is given me by a good German cook up in Milwaukee, and I'm going to pass it on to you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I put in the carrot, I'm going to add just a little water with a little orange juice in it. The recipe on page 9 calls this the Vitamix Health Cocktail. Now, before I put in the carrot, I have a patriotic duty to perform. I happen to be the president of the Natural Food Institute, as you know. And we are trying to teach the mothers of America exactly what the Red Cross and the Parent Teachers Association are trying to put over, And that is that you must, mother, you must change the diet of your family, or America is going blind. Do you know right now in America that 1/2 of us children at all are looking through a pane of glass? Do you know right now in America that half of America 27 years of age and over hasn't got a tooth in their mouth? Call up your dentist. You say, yes, you can come over 7 weeks from next Friday. There's so many ahead of you. Do you know that 1/3 of the American children 12 years of age haven't got a tonsil in their throat? And we had 1 million boys go before the draft board in our last World War, and 460,000 of them were rejected. Think of it. Brigadier General Louis B. Hershey says it's a national disgrace that 90% of those boys were rejected because of malnutrition. In other words, at the dining room table. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll show you why those conditions exist. You know, there's almost 1/2 the American women who can't nurse their baby. They have to ask a doctor if they can nurse their baby. There isn't another living animal that has to ask such a question, but the mother is not feeding herself right in order to make the milk and the quality that the child should have. So the doctor says, give it orange juice, cod liver oil, purees of vegetables, and she does. Until the kid gets old enough to come to the table. Then when the doctor isn't looking, she says to that little child, you don't need minerals and vitamins anymore. So she throws the whole works out the window. And the first meal she gives that child is one of the most demineralized, devitalized foods you can possibly give him, which is mashed potatoes. Think of it. Half of America living on mashed potatoes today. You come to my house, mashed potatoes. I go to your house, mashed potatoes. We go over to the restaurant, mashed potatoes. Over to the hotel, the cafeteria, mashed potatoes. One lady said, what's wrong with mashed potatoes, you old fanatic? Well, I'll show you what's wrong with mashed potatoes. Why, the mothers are even teaching their little children, the coming cooks of America, to do this thing. The God of heaven, when he made that potato, he placed 8 minerals and 5 vitamins in the skin of the potato and next to the skin. He placed the starch, the carbohydrate here, and a small amount of protein. That's the part they take away from him to get diabetes. There's only one way to eat that potato if you want your family to have eyes and teeth and tonsils, and that's to put it in the oven and bake it and eat the skin and all. But no, Mama said Daddy doesn't have any teeth. He can't eat the skin. And she doesn't have any teeth. She can't eat the skin. And the reason they don't have any teeth is because they didn't eat the skin. So she takes a knife, and she peels off those 8 minerals and 4 vitamins as if they were poison. And she throws them in the garbage can. There go their eyes and their teeth. Then she notices the little brown specks, the eye, the vitamin E. That's the vitamin that reproduces a potato. That's the vitamin that she and Papa must have if they reproduce. The reproductive vitamin, vitamin E. She doesn't want it, she gouges it out and throws it in the garbage can. And then she takes the knife and she cuts the potato half in 2, puts it in a pot of water, and for 25 minutes now she does give it the works. She boils out every mineral and every vitamin. And after she gets them all boiled out, what does she do with them? Why, she trots right over to the kitchen sink and drains the whole works down the sewer. She gets out her potato masher and she mashes the starch. She puts on butter, salt, and pepper, feeds the baby in the high chair mashed potatoes. Little Mary gets mashed potatoes. Billy gets mashed potatoes. Old Tom eats a big gob of mashed potatoes. He has to. He hasn't got any teeth. And the reason he hasn't got any teeth, Mama threw him down the sewer. Now, ladies and gentlemen,
You got the idea? Okay. So, but he went on, and he, what's going to work? That was that was the first filmed TV infomercial in the world. But he went on and he tried other products, and this one's worth maybe 1 minute. But let's take a look at his idea about safety grader and how that's going to work. Let's see if I can get this going.
The American Red Cross and the Parent Teachers Association have been trying to educate the American mothers in the preparation of their food to see that they give to their family at least 1 big vegetable salad a day and give to their families vegetables and fruit juices. Now, the reason of that is that there's so many deficiencies in our homes, such as bad eyes, bad teeth, tonsils, and so forth. And ladies and gentlemen, we can only correct that, or likely can best prevent those things with our food. Now you must have an instrument or instruments to prepare your food properly. I want to show you here an instrument we call our wonderful health grater and salad maker and juice extractor. It's a safety grater. It's a special wire, specially woven and specially shaped, so that it'll grate.
Okay, enough of that one. How about let's try contour chairs. Let me see. There it goes. This one wasn't made by Centercraft. This is, I don't know who made it.
I have a chair here that I'm going to show you that I think and I know should be in every home in America. Notice the construction of this chair. This chair is made out of Tennessee quarter-sawed second-growth oak. It's not flimsy, the kind that we've seen that you sit down on it the first time and it splits and the frame goes to pieces. This chair you will have for the rest of your life. It's put together with very heavy bolts and screws so that it'll give you years of service. Now here's the way that you open the chair. Just let it fall in place like that. We have 3 adjustments on this chair, ladies and gentlemen. Look here. There's notch number 1, that's your rocking chair. Here's notch number 2, that's your Morris chair. Here's notch number 3, and that's your bed. When you get your chairs through the mail, remember to sit down in the chair 4 or 5 times. Roll this canvas up to the place that it gives you perfect relaxation. Now you put it in the slot like that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll open the chair up in this manner. You sit down in the chair just as you would in any other conventional lawn chair in this manner. Now I lean back, and I want you to notice. See the comfort? Why, you can tell as you look at me that I have perfect ease here. Boy. Talk about a rocking chair. Now, ladies and gentlemen, suppose that the neighbors leave and you'd like to take a little nap. Maybe you'd like to recline. All you do is raise up on the arms and let it down into notch number 2. Now lean back. And here you are in your Morris chair. But you're in more than a Morris chair. You're in a rocking Morris chair. You never saw a Morris chair that was tailor-made and a rocking Morris chair.
Okay, you got the idea. But by the way, I don't know if you guys remember, John Belushi made a wonderful skit about the Vitamix thing, and I Love Lucy show also really played off the early Vitamix commercials. So it was fodder for a lot of comedians for a lot of years. Now, Ron Popeil. Anybody hear the name Ron Popeil? Oh, okay. Set It and Forget It, Chop-O-Matic, Veg-O-Matic. He was the king of infomercials, and a lot of people give him credit for a lot of these ideas. So Ron Popeil, big name. And then you have the guys, Ginzu Knives. I'm going to read the names. Barry Belcher and Ed Valenti came along, and they did come up with an idea. They took an idea that somebody else had developed, and they put the name Ginzu on it. Sounded like a cool name. And they had a Japanese chef, chopping the tomato and cutting down the tree. But did these guys think of these things? Where did these ideas really come from? Let's take a look at words like Great Scott, a knife that cuts a tree. And that's not all. Well, what do you know? The other side of the knife is sharp enough for a professional meat cutter. The knife's safeguard handle, beautifully finished in simulated ivory, is boil-proof, dishwasher steam-proof, and shatterproof, guaranteed for life. The new fork tip lets you carve and serve with one hand. Yes, but how much? 69 cents. And where? Where did all that stuff come from? It wasn't Ron Popeil. It wasn't the Ginzu people. Here's who it came from. That's my father, and that's Harry Horrocks making the early Quick Cut commercial. So let's show a Quick Cut commercial. You tell me which is first. This is definitely done before those other guys came along. Oop, looks like I didn't get it.
Great Scott, a knife that cuts trees? Well, what do you know? And frozen food covered with ice actually cuts through solid ice? No wonder it's patented.
And that's not all. The other side of this double-edged knife is sharp enough for a professional meat cutter. Stays sharp, too, because 90% of this razor edge never touches cutting surface. This new fork tip lets you carve and serve with one hand. This new safeguard handle, beautifully fashioned in simulated ivory, is boil-proof, dishwashing steam-proof, and shatter-proof. Guaranteed for life by Quick Cut.
Yes, but how much? 69 cents? Where?
At Foodland, that's where. That's right. This professional-size, all-purpose knife is only 69 cents with any purchase. At Foodland, where the test of lower prices is the total on your tape. Test us.
Okay. Now, how many are from Ohio or from the Cleveland area? Anybody from the Cleveland area? This might not go over that well. Let's see. Well, you know who Tim Conway is, and Tim Conway was a very famous comedian, made it big in Hollywood, but he started in Cleveland, and his sidekick was Ernie Anderson, and Ernie Anderson was Ghoulardi, and on late night television, they wanted to fill the airtime, so they'd show old movies, and Ghoulardi would come in with weird makeup on and make fun of the movie, and frequently they didn't run the whole movie. And so the station would get a lot of letters in the mail saying, hey, you know, you didn't run the whole movie. So he'd run part of it the next day. And it was just kids, teenagers loved Ernie Anderson. And he did a lot of charitable work, but he really caused a lot of problems for the TV station. And he didn't stay in Cleveland more than a couple of years. And he went to Hollywood, and he became the voice of the Love Boat. And he became the highest paid TV voice. Ernie Anderson could not do anything. He could not memorize a script. He had to read it. So here we're going to show a couple of early Tim Conway, very first efforts before he became big in Hollywood, started in Cleveland, Ohio. This is a Bell telephone ad.
Hi. Old Santa and I were just counting the votes pouring in here at the North Pole, trying to determine which color Princess phone would be the most popular gift this year.
White.
White.
Beige.
Beige.
Blue.
Blue.
Pink.
Pink.
Turquoise.
Turquoise.
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus?
It's a write-in.
But who,
I don't know.
And there's a whole reel of these, but we'll just watch one. Let's go and now take a look at, this is, I'm sorry, this is a really bad commercial. I mean, just bad. But it was done for Star Muffler, and it was Ernie Anderson, and he was much loved. So the people who needed mufflers, because they're probably teenagers and their cars are not as good as some of the other cars, so maybe it appealed to them. And in this, the sidekick, what was it, Big Chuck? Yeah. Big Chuck is in this thing. He's works at Star Muffler, and he's got a cleft chin. You'll see him, and he became very big in Cleveland television. So here's the commercial.
A young thing and I had just been to see a Donald Duck movie, and we were going over to my place, when suddenly the muffler blew. Well, I didn't know what to do. Went over the car radio.
Star Muffler, we want you to be quiet. Quiet in your car. You're not far from a star, no matter where you are.
Hi there. Sounds like you need a lifetime guaranteed Star muffler. A muffler so good that you'll never have to buy another one for this car again.
Yeah, well, good, because I'm in a hurry.
Installation's free. Only takes 15 minutes.
Charge it?
Sure. Take 90 days to pay.
Okay, baby. Hey, where did baby go?
Sorry, pal. We only guarantee the muffler.
Oh.
Pretty bad, right? Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to have fun. We're going to get into milestones of motoring. 1954, Merv Griffith, Joey Brown, Rita Farrell. It's a musical. It's not really, when I talk about industrial musicals, I'm generally talking about musicals shown at sales meetings. This was shown widely on television. In fact, the prints that we found in the beginning and everything we knew, we thought it was a black and white movie. But then somebody found a copy of it on eBay, and we're going to show you the eBay version. And it's a little chewed up in the beginning, just a couple little vibrations, but then it settles down. But I think generally we'll like the color version better. So Milestones Motoring, again, it's was promoting Ohio brand and introducing boron gas, which is leaded gas, not a good thing. They didn't know that back then. But the film focuses on the contributions of Ohio to the history of the automobile. Many famous people, many famous cars, many great innovations came out of Ohio. So let's watch Milestones of Motoring.
Is it running?
Like the birds sing in the trees, reason to live, living to please. The sky is the only roof I have over my head, and when I'm weary, Mother Nature makes me a bed. I'm just going along as I please, breezing along with the breeze.
Come with us down a highway of memories with Rita Farrell and Merv Griffin. And starring Ohio's own Joey Brown as the man who saw it all.
Oh, hello. I was just about to take a stroll down memory lane. Join me? Remember, well, you remember the peerless automobile and the horn. And remember the trouble we had getting in? And surely you remember the pork pie hat. And the Baker Electric, 23 Skidoo, Jean Big Pole Sitters, Al Capone, four-wheel brakes, thermometer in the radiator cap, Stanley steamer, Presto light, shaving a hair, side curtains, Granamy, adjust the wheel, Charlie, my boy. Yes, we have no bananas. Surely you remember. You were there. We lived it. Remember?
This is Warren Guthrie welcoming you to a special Ohio presentation. We invite you to step back through the years with us then to quainter, quieter days, days when the first faint rumblings of the automotive revolution were beginning to be heard in the alleys behind the main streets of all America. Did I say the rumblings of a revolution? Actually, it was a wheezing, sputtering, coughing sound, and nowhere did it reach such a crescendo as in Ohio, where men like Alex Winton, Windsor White, Eddie Rickenbacker, Charles Kettering, Frank Seiberling, the Fisher Brothers, the Studebakers, John Willis, Ward Packard, and a host of others heard the sound and found it impelling and irresistible. About the year 1898, in a little shop off Madison Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, an automobile sale is in progress. The seller and manufacturer, Alex Winton, is the first man in the world to sell an automobile, and if he sells to the present prospect, a young electrical engineer from Warren, Ohio, it will be Winton's 12th sale.
I don't know, Winton. That suspension system doesn't look so good to me.
It's good enough to carry me from here to New York
In 78 hours, 43 minutes. But that was a year ago. You can't live on that stunt the rest of your life.
Young man, it wasn't a stunt. It was a demonstration of the dependability of Winton automobiles.
Yeah. How much horsepower do you say she develops?
5 horsepower.
5 horsepower, eh? And that's all you can get out of it?
It's better than anybody else can do right now.
What do you mean, right now?
I mean with the gasolines we have right now. When the oil people understand that gasoline will outsell coal oil one of these days, maybe they'll give us a better fuel.
Until then, you'll just blame the fuel for poor performance.
Look, son, if you think you can build a better automobile, why don't you try it?
You know, Winton, I think I'll just do that.
And well, let me know how you make out, Mr. What did you say your name was?
Packard. J.W. Packard. And I won't have to let you know, Mr. Winton. My customers will tell you.
James Ward Packard went back to Warren, Ohio, and made good his boast. In this building, he produced the first Packard automobile. It was a remarkable automobile, and its fame was soon nationwide. Its single cylinder developed 12 horsepower. It had a chain drive and the transmission 3 speeds forward. Packard soon had more orders for his cars than he could possibly fill, and that may explain his seeming indifference one day about 1900 when he was busy in the shop.
Mr. Packard, there's a man out front says he wants to buy a car.
I can't see him. I'm busy.
But he's come a long way to talk to you. He looks important.
If he wants to know anything about a Packard, tell him, tell him to ask a man who owns one.
Later, Packard sold his whole operation, lock, stock, barrel, and slogan, to a group of manufacturers from Detroit. Meanwhile, as Alex Winton had foreseen, the oil industry, which up until that time had frequently thrown gasoline away, was trying to develop a motor fuel which would meet the needs of the automobile engine. For then as now, an engine was no better than the fuel it burns. And the improvements came both in fuels and in cars. By 1905, Alex Winton's car had taken on 4 cylinders, and they produced a whopping 40 horsepower. Winton was far and away the most important of the car manufacturers, but there was plenty of competition. There was the Franklin, the car beautiful. The Elmore, made in Lakeside, Ohio. The exclusive and imperious Duryea. The Cadillac Runabout. And the dashing Rio touring car. But the hottest car of the year 1905 turned out to be a snappy little number known as the Curve Oldsmobile. Its advertising claimed that science had made it mechanically perfect, presupposing brains in its owner, which presumably in that day was a safe assumption. The Oldsmobile got a tremendous boost when Gus Edwards' famous song swept the nation. People swarmed into Oldsmobile showrooms asking to see the Merry Oldsmobile. Usually they came in just to look, but they had overlooked that phenomenon of American enterprise, the salesman.
Now you're looking at her, folks. That's the car that's got all America singing. Did you ever see anything like her? How about those lines?
Well, we got no intention of buying it, and we're just looking.
That's all right. Perfectly all right. What you driving now?
Oh, I got a dapple mare and a Columbus buggy.
Well, you'll find this Oldsmobile a lot more economical to operate, and she gives you 12 times the power. Besides, you don't have to go out in the pasture to catch her every time you want to go somewhere. 10 miles on a gallon of gas, and she'll do 30 miles an hour.
Oh, George, stand away from it.
Oh, dear, now there's nothing to worry about. Is there?
Oh, no, it's safest car on the road. Here, step right in. Try the seat. Step right in there.
Don't mind if I do.
There you are. Great, huh? Nothing quite like her. Once you get the tiller, that Oldsmobile in your hand, and feel that 12 horsepower behind you. Can't you just picture yourself driving along the road in an Oldsmobile, The wind a-whistling, the clouds of dust a-flying, of course behind you, chickens coming out to see what's going on the road.
Come away with me, Lucille, in my merry Oldsmobile. Down the road of life we'll fly, automobiling you and I. To the church we'll swiftly steal, then our wedding bells will peal. You can go as far as you like with me in my merry Oldsmobile, in my merry Oldsmobile.
Hardly had the strains of Merry Oldsmobile died out when another automobile song hit the vaudeville stages of the nation. It was a popular act, for it featured a real automobile on the stage and fundamental truth in the lyrics.
He'd have to get under, get out and get under to fix his little machine.
I was just dying to cuddle my queen, but every minute when I'd begin it,
he'd have to get under, get out and get under.
then he'd get back at the wheel. A dozen times we'd start to
hug and kiss, and then the darn old engine it was missing. Then he'd have to get under, get out and get under,
and fix up his automobile,
and fix up his automobile.
By 1912, the Standard Oil Company and others had developed the cracking process, a method which not only provided better gasoline for better engines, but also increased yield of gasoline per barrel of crude, up from 10 to 15% to almost 50%. The cracking process was the result of organized research, investigation, and experimentation carried on by petroleum scientists. By 1912, the automobile was just about ready to exert its full force on life in these United States. The reason? Well, let's see.
No, there ain't nothing at all to starting her up. Here, I'll show you. Oh, excuse me. Now, first you set the spark lever up to about 9 o'clock. So, then the gas to about 3 o'clock. Then you turn on the magneto. There, you got that?
Got it.
Okay, now watch me, right around here. Now you put your finger through the choke wire loop, thus. And with your right hand, you grasp the crank. Of course, you can feel when she's all engaged and ready to turn over. Now, you pull out the loop and give her a spin. Yeah, well, that's the idea of it anyway. Now, try it once more. Here we are. Spin! Well, away we go. You know, there's an old saying, if first you don't succeed, why, up we go again. There you are. You see, there's nothing to... Well, here we go. Of course, this time you don't pull it out so far because you're liable to flood it. Now, there you are. You see, there's nothing to start it at all. Well, easy come, easy go, I say.
But 1912 was a year of sensations in the automobile industry. Cadillac introduced the first self-starter. And by the next year...
I understand your automobile is now equipped with a self-starting device.
Yes, indeed, sir. A remarkable invention. Remarkable.
Invented by an Ohioan, I believe.
That is correct, sir. Remarkably clever, these Ohioans. Mechanic by the name of Kettering developed it. Shall we proceed with the demonstration, sir?
By all means.
If you please. Now, the usual adjustments. So, then place your foot on the button. Oh, yes. So, and exert pressure. Really very clever, eh? Would you care to try it, madame?
That will not be necessary. Deliver it to this address.
Ah, yes, thank you.
Yes, 1912 was a year of revolutions. Thanks greatly to the self-starter, the automobile became an acceptable vehicle in society, and 356,000 cars were sold in that year. It brought total registration in the country up to almost 1 million. With 1 million hungry tanks to fill, the oil industry was pressed to find adequate supplies of crude. But even more important was the problem of distribution. Oh, the average hardware store kept a couple of wooden barrels of gasoline, a safe distance to the rear, and a blacksmith shop could frequently take care of the stranded motorist, that is, if he brought his own can. In those cases, though, it was always wise to strain the gasoline through a chamois or through a very fine wire screen. But out in Pataskala, Ohio, in an area between Newark and Columbus, where even hardware stores and blacksmith shops were few and far between, a new idea was born, again in the year 1912. But let's learn about it firsthand.
Well, sir, of course, for a while, you'll have to carry spare gas. But it won't be long before you'll be able to buy it any place. Well, you know, right now down in Columbus, there's a store that don't do nothing but sell gas and oil. Yes, sir, a genuine gasoline store that don't do nothing but cater to motorists. I'll never forget the first time I drove up.
What'd you stop out here for, mister? You're supposed to drive on in.
In? I never heard of such a thing.
Well, you're hearing of it now. This is a gasoline store, mister, special for autos. All we sell here is gas and oil and a few odds and ends that you car owners need.
Hey, that's what I call service. Too bad we ain't got more of these kind of places.
This is only the beginning, mister. Why, one of these days there are going to be stores like this all over town. And maybe some even out on country roads someday. Hey, you mark my words.
Don't cost nothing to dream. Well, I'll drive in and you can give me oh, shucks. Fill her up.
That was the first gas station in the world, a significant Ohio and Sohio milestone. But as Harvey Wycliffe had foreseen, soon gas stations sprang up like mushrooms along the nation's highways. 1913 saw the birth of Wilderant Chevrolet. Because of its beautiful lines, fine performance, and low cost, it soon began to be talked of as a possible rival to the Model T. Then came the Dodge with the detachable winter top. And the smart new American underslung, a beauty. And the Maxwell at $655 was something to write home about. Then came the 20s, the era of wonderful nonsense, the Charleston, the Hip Flask. Better gasolines had led to faster, more powerful automobiles. And as the 20s opened, the younger set argued the relative merits of the Jordan Playboy, the Stutz Bearcat, and the Mercer Raceabout.
Oh, baby, look at this beauty. Hey, Bub.
Yep.
How many horses she pack?
Oh, 22 and a half. 4 forward speeds. And she'll do better than 70 mph. Champion-like car, that's what we call it.
A real champ, huh, baby?
It'll do.
Listen, how much would this set us back?
$32.50 and she's yours. And worth every nickel of it. Here, come here a minute. Just look at that upholstery. Genuine leather. Solid mahogany instrument panel. And here, here's something for you. The motometer.
A what?
This thing here. Got a thermometer right in the radiator cap. When the red line gets up into the circle, then it's time to cool her off.
Really burns up the road, huh?
I'll say she does. Ain't she sweet?
Ain't she sweet? See her coming down the street. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet?
Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice.
Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Just cast an eye.
Just cast an eye
in her direction. Oh me, oh my.
Oh me, oh my.
Ain't that perfection? I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? And I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet?
The era of wonderful nonsense it was, but it was also the era of wonderful achievement. Four-wheel brakes, twin camshafts, overhead valves, hemispherical combustion chambers, ever higher compression ratios. all made possible by an incident that occurred in Dayton, Ohio. Incident? No, it was more than that. It was research. The problem to find out what caused gasoline engines to knock. Knock meant pre-ignition, loss of power, lower efficiency. In Charles Kettering's Delco laboratories, Thomas Midgley seeks the cause of engine knock. He suspects the gasoline. He tries adding chemicals to the fuel, hoping to find something that will eliminate knock. Weeks and months go by. Kettering stops in from time to time to add a word of advice and encouragement.
Well, got any leads yet, Tom?
Well, nothing concrete, just wild guesses. I've got one of them about ready to go.
Oh, what's that?
Well, it's born of desperation, I guess, but I got to thinking the trailing arbutus plant blooms even when it's covered with snow. Now, do you know why that is?
Well, it has a red leaf, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose it absorbs heat.
Well, now, that's my reason. And I thought if we could find some kind of a dye that would make gasoline red, it might somehow do something. I told you I was getting desperate.
So what are you going to use for dye?
Well, I asked Fred what to use. All he could think of was iodine. He gave me some, and I diluted it. Now, we'll see what color we get.
Oh, go right ahead. Oh, that's not very red. Put in some more. Oh, that's pretty good.
All right, let's see what happens.
As a matter of fact, at that moment, neither Midgley nor Kettering knew that they had, by merest chance, stumbled on the one element that would stop engine knock. It had nothing to do with the color of the gasoline. The iodine itself had done the trick. Iodine was much too expensive to use as an additive, but it led to the eventual discovery by Midgley of tetraethyl lead. The first tankful of ethyl gasoline was offered for sale in Dayton, Ohio in February of 1923. Ethyl gasoline climaxed the long struggle to reduce engine weight and at the same time improve car performance through better fuels. The results of this never-ending search have been spectacular indeed. Let's take a look, for example, at the 1927 Pierce Arrow. That engine weighed 1,200 pounds and developed 100 horsepower. The 1950 Ford engine also produced 100 horsepower, but it weighed only 600 pounds. The 1954 Oldsmobile develops 5 times the horsepower as the 1912 Olds, with no increase in the engine size. Today's white truck engine cuts engine weight by 1,000 pounds, increasing payloads by that amount thanks to the improvement in gasolines. In the 20s, many of these improvements were already well underway, and the motorists of that era were well aware of them. Yes, the 20s were wonderful for their nonsense, wonderful for their achievement, and wonderful for the memories they left us.
We were there. We lived it. Remember? Remember 1925? How the skirt lengths went higher? All the shirts that were lost in the Florida boom? And while the college crowd was dancing the black bottom, Amy Semple McPherson raised her voice against sin. 1926. Remember how shocked you were to read of Rudolph Valentino's death? But how quickly the It Girl made you forget? And the tear you shed for the Oakland, but rushed right down to see the new Pontiac. Gertrude Ederle swam the channel and became America's sweetheart. Dempsey forgot the duck. 1927, Lindbergh and the Spirit of St. Louis. Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs. The movies learned to talk. And we were still keeping cool with Coolidge. 1928, Shipwreck Kelly won the flagpole sitting championship. Mae West became Diamond Lil. The end of the month, Jack Benny bought his first Maxwell. 1929, you were moaning low, but you kept painting the clouds with sunshine. You haven't forgotten, have you? Why, how could you? Why, mister, that was only yesterday.
I'm just breezing along with a breeze, breezing along with a breeze. Like the birds that sing in the trees, take the lift with me. The sky
So John's dad wrote the script. My dad directed that film. You know, Cleveland Playhouse actors played all the bit parts. Probably that was the Cleveland Orchestra that played the music. You know, I was thinking about this. You know, these sponsored film studios were small. I don't think the studio ever had more than 25 or 30 people, but they covered all industries and told the stories of America for a long period of time. What we'd like to do now is talk to you if you are interested in following up and looking for some of this stuff. The Cinecraft collection is at Hagley Library in Wilmington, Delaware, and it's an online library. It's a digital library. Go to digital.hagley.org/Cinecraft. And if you go there, you're going to find 5 tabs. And one of the tabs will be oral histories. You can listen to the directors talk about the films. One of the tabs is Frank Sedel's papers and about all of his scripts. One of the tabs is movies. And the movie tab, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in no particular order of films. And one of the terms in the research world, if you're researching anything in a library, you want to remember the term finding aid. And you might want to say finding aid sponsored studios, sponsored film studios, or finding aid something or else. And most of the research libraries will keep very detailed records of what they hold in their collection and whether it's online or not, or what box it's in and what library it's in. So, you know, become a researcher. There's so many other topics we could talk about. For example, sound slide films. Here's boxes and boxes of these films. This was the cheaper alternative to sponsored films, you know, where you had a record and a slide film or a slide strip, and you might go into an office and open your briefcase and show the film, and if it was latest equipment, it would be a silent beep, and it would change the slide automatically. And the few of these that I've looked at, I found a wonderful one about porous chrome. Porous chrome is chrome like on the chrome bumper, but he found a way to put holes in it. He was a Dutch scientist, and he ended up settling in Cleveland. He was Jewish. The war was beginning. He came to the United States to talk about his innovation, and he couldn't get back to Germany, but his family was still in Germany. And his product made our submarines run smoother because porous chrome, you can put lubricant on the chrome, and everything will work a lot better and a lot longer. Amazing product, probably polluting product. But the thing I found out when I got into researching, I wrote his family and I said, you know, we found this stuff, your father's script and slide film that he made, some of the early ads, and they wrote back, did you know that his daughter was involved with Anne Frank, and she was in the insurance business, and every day for lunch she'd go eat her lunch and pass food on to somebody else that would then deliver it to the Frank family. So you have all these amazing people that you run into in relationships, and it's just a great fun going down memory lane. So on behalf of Neil McCormick, who was here from the studio for the first couple of days, who's heavily involved now in preserving this stuff, John Seidel, who lives a mile and a half down the road, and myself, we thank you very much. And if you want to write me, jcully@hagley.org, and I'd love to try and find out if somebody did a film on something that might be of interest to you. So thank you very much. We still have a minute if anybody wants to stay around and talk, you know, we'd be happy to talk. Yes, sir. Yep.
And he was born in Holgate, Ohio, and I'm from Holgate, Ohio. And they had a great celebration. He was there. So he used to see my age, so that's been a lot of years ago.
I want to say something else about Joey Brown. Maybe Neil might have said this earlier. We start telling the same stories over sometimes, but when they made this film, Joey Brown's in the studio, and he's looking around, he says, I think I've been here before. And the studio, before it became a studio, was a vaudeville house, so he had been there, you know, many years before. He was quite the name back in that era. Any other questions? Okay, thanks. See you later. See you at the movies.